Good morning. You want to go ahead and make me a co-host?
My heart is wild, my hands are wild, my feet are wild, my legs are wild, my teeth are wild, my breath is wild. I am wild, I am a wild river, I flow, I go, you dam me up, I change my course, I rush, I ripple, I trickle, I tickle. I am wild, I am always free, I am wild, I am always free, I am wild. My dreams are wild, my spirit is wild, my story is wild, my path is wild, my mother is wild, my father is wild. I am wild, I am always free, I am wild, I am always free, I am wild. I run, I leap, I stretch, I creep, I nuzzle, I nestle, I wrestle, I freak, I pulse, I bite, I lick, I growl. I am wild, I am always free, I am wild, I am always free, I am wild. My home is here, I'm free, I roam, I dare, I dance, I share my own. I live my heart and I love my bones. I am wild, I am always free, I am wild, I am always free, I am wild. My home is here, I'm free, I roam, I dare, I dance, I share my own. I live my heart and I love my I am wild.
Good morning, Cassie.
Morning. When my alarm went off this morning, it was much easier to get up.
Oh, yeah?
On the fourth day, I finally was like, okay.
That's funny. Is there, oh, Shaelee's on. That's awesome. It's so funny. The little advertisements that come up on my YouTube are Florida based, which is really funny.
Oh, yeah.
Let's give him a great show, okay?
I'll just mute it here. All right. Good morning, Shaelee. I had to jump off at the very end of last night. I had an urgent call from one of my sisters. Any feedback or plan moving forward? Anything that we need to like be super cautious of, or?
Not that I know of.
I have one quick thing that I thought of sharing with Planetary last night is just, I mean, it's just a good idea all the time, is trying to, whenever we are asking for questions, put a time. If we want short questions, I'm just reminding myself as much as anyone else, is be like, give it like a time slot, you know, in some respects.
What do you mean? Like tell people you have about 30 seconds to respond?
Yeah,
Like
can you give me a, yes, that's a good example. It just depends on what you want. Like, or, you know, but yeah, I would say more like for the person, like say, hey, we might have like 10 questions, but we have 10 minutes, or let's do, you know, let's do two sentence questions.
Yeah, 2 sentences better than time.
It seems like there are a few people who have a lot to share. And maybe another thing we could do is say, hey, if you have more than a few sentence comment or even some data about some things, can you put that into a Slack group? And we're going to share that, so that way, because people can't write it down that quickly, you know. There's one lady who's just like full of data, and every time she shares, and she's amazing, excited, and she's also really kind. But I can't write things down as fast as she shares. So I think
yeah, and having that written is the best. Yeah.
I also don't think she is good with technology, so and even just encouraging them to put it in the comments, because then we can save it in our Slack group. If like letting them know, like, even if you don't join Slack, we can get this out to the general public. We can share this with people.
Yeah.
And if it's something like she wants us to announce it, like maybe we could encourage them to do PSA before the comment, and then we can put it in a even special place in Slack.
Yeah, we could have a place where people can even verbally share PSAs, or posting all of the PSAs to a channel would be really nice, just to have links for that sort of stuff.
Because she definitely has things that she wants to share. I noticed that, and things she wants help with, and like, you know, where it'd be nice for people to know about it, and so that they could help her and share.
Yeah, and good morning, Sarah. I see you were here. Welcome.
Let's look at what's going first, so I can.
Yeah, did you let Penny know that Laura was glad to take her up on the?
You know what? I woke up with a message from her saying, "Oh, we got changed. Thanks so much." You know, so she's super happy about that.
Cool. She saw it on the schedule.
Yeah, she got up. Another thing is, I think that her description is going to change a little bit. I think it's going to change a little bit towards more forestry. You know, we just had some discussions about the fires and some of the things, and I think that would be super helpful. That's really a super strong point of hers, and I actually feel like there's quite a few people who are interested in that. So another thing I just wanted to kind of throw out there is when I did a poll of people, and I'm gonna see if I can throw that poll up here now that this is a good time to throw up a poll. When I did a poll of people, something that we really haven't addressed as much from my perspective, that was something people were interested in. We may not get to it, but that's okay. Is urban permaculture. And so yeah, the poll, I can throw that poll back up there, you know. Oh no, this is more about me, so let's just turn that off. But at the same rate, when I did that poll, it was pretty, let me end the poll. 0% for everyone. Okay. I'm gonna send out another poll here real quick.
Just for a bit of our own housekeeping, if I can just say this here. Okay. When we have other presenters, and David, this is a piece of loving feedback for you in particular. I heard in almost every session a reference to your world traveling permaculture designer and your research farm. And I think it's important for us as moderators and facilitators to not bring it back to us and our own skills and promoting our own business, but keeping the focus on the ideas and the presenters. I mean, that's good. There's a space for that and we can share. But I think like, you know, like we need to make sure that that's what we're leading with always, because that can be distracting. Or if there is someone in our group who doesn't feel like they have privilege or who has issues owning land, to hear that there's these world traveling land barons who are facilitating this thing, you know, it can be painful to witness that.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate you doing that. And also I welcome that both like privately and publicly. This is kind of halfway private, halfway public.
Yeah, I know Kara's here. I'm not sure if they're listening, but
that's super good. And
I do that too. I interrupt and I'm like, oh, but I have this idea I want to contribute. I need to be like, Shaelee, this is not your venue. You know, ask the questions and try to, you know, like we want to contribute, and it's so important that we're here and helping and we have knowledge to share, but it's like, you know, it's this really delicate place. So thank you for receiving that well.
Oh,
it's nice that there's a mute button that we can easily like it gives you a moment to pause before you like hit unmute and have to like talk.
Yeah.
So, just as a like a thing.
Yeah, thank you, Shaelee. I really appreciate you. And I appreciate that we have the freedom both even outside of the convergence itself to have feedback, because people like you make me a better person.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I hope that it's okay to use this moment. I just, you know, I know that like we have another day, and to be stewarding our day in a way that makes people feel included and uplifted, and not making those, you know, flags with words. You know, yeah, it's okay, Kara. We can, is it Kara or Sarah? We can totally talk herbal tea morning stuff. We like having public meetings. So there's just a little bit of, you know, organizing stuff.
I'm going.
Yeah, definitely. You can be here. We're an open book as far as our
Kira. Cool.
And when we have board meetings, you're welcome to come and hear it all, like, and be part of this, and give me feedback too. I'll keep my mouth shut now.
Yeah, I really value how we're like, you know, I want feedback. If I'm ever like, I don't know, doing something that makes anyone uncomfortable, I totally want to know it. Even if it's subtle, because it's like that problem is a solution thing. It's this ability to help ourselves grow to be these, you know, more glimmers than triggers. Keep on turning it around and lifting up the ways that we can make an inclusive feeling set space. And so, yeah. And I think face-to-face time and we're together is so much better than, sometimes it's good to write stuff down, but when we have like an in-person space that feels, I don't know, more gentle, or there's a time to react around each other instead of like stewing in the mystery of what someone might have meant. And so thank you both or all three of you for giving me that grace to speak right now. And David, I do adore you, and I'm so glad we're in here together, and I love hearing about your project. So like, that's all so good. And I'm glad you shared your videos, and it's encouraging to know what you do too, but it's just, you know, being judicious with it. Yeah. All right. Do we want to talk herbs? Do you guys have any other, like, I don't know, convergency stuff?
I just want to say, I really was feeling like it was more like the in-person convergence last night when I realized it'd been a couple days since I'd taken a shower. And I was like,
Totally.
You're not camping, Cassie. Like, you're in your house. You can do that. You could like just take care of your physical space.
Yeah.
Anyway, kind of cracked me up because I like definitely felt that conversion.
Yeah, I had a moment like that too. I was like, Shaelee, you're not getting any sleep. You're hardly eating. You're doing these things. Yeah. It's just like the convergence.
Also around the music last night, there is like just little feelings of like, I met this person now, this new person, and I sent, sent a message, and it was cool to have little conversations around the campfire. is what I called it last night, and just telling people good night, you know, which is really fun.
Mhm.
And I think we had 4 people from Florida, which was exciting. Well, counting me, you know, so 3.
Yeah, totally. And seeing how there's people from Songaya who didn't necessarily know, like, I don't think, is Sylvan here? I don't think she knows Galen and Jonavi from other events before. So even though we're kind of Northwest people who pop up in community, often there was that like new connection that made in people who are close spatially, and like, that's our goal, you know, we're making the way for us to see each other.
Like,
Yeah.
I want all the cool people to know each other. Like, I want to be like, so you're cool and you're cool, so here, friends, because I think you guys would get along.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in a lot of ways, there's some successes about converging and fulfilling needs. I saw a few of those, and that was the heart of Convergences originally, which is so cool.
Yeah, and Kira and Sue, if you would like to just say something at some point, you're welcome to ask questions or pop in. And otherwise, we're going to have, I don't know, we'll just be talking.
And we're very used to talking to each other. So if you guys do feel like you want to pop in and say things, then.
Yeah, good morning.
We could
Good
pose
morning.
a question.
I figured I'd leave the video off until my coffee was ready.
How come your place looks like it's like middle of the day, bright, happy? What's going on there, Kira?
That's artificial lighting.
Wow. It looks very much like.
It is kind of light out. Gray, but the sun's there.
Same light.
I know, this is as bright as I can get my space, and it's just what I have to deal with, this little dark person.
Yes, Shaelee always looks like she's in the middle of a cave.
I have the many advantages of my parents' beautiful suburban home.
It's very pretty. You have all those nice plants behind you. I like it.
I definitely, houseplants were my gateway plants, and I filled my room and then expanded outside.
Nice.
That's a good way to be.
They're all my little, they're everywhere.
There was someone on Discord, and I'm sorry if it was you. Well, it was someone, I don't know. It was someone named Clover, I think.
Oh, it is, yeah.
Is that you? Okay. And you were talking about like permaculturing up your parents' yard and like slowly adding plants to it. I thought that was fun. Yeah.
I'm working on it. I have plants on order from the Native Foods Nursery, and I just got seeds from Northwest Foodscape. Oh, Northwest Foods, Meadowscapes. And we're gonna put currants in, and I've been talking to them about like different ground covers that are edible.
Oh yeah, there's so many different ground covers that like, and you could sell it by being like, and you don't have to mow the grass. Like
that's what I've been going with, because we're already lazy lawn people. Like it's half clover, and then like 20% moss, and then the rest of it's grass.
I love moss.
Imagine if it was just like native wildflowers.
Yeah.
Working on it.
There's a company, a seed company, I think, that makes like a lawn mix, like a really nice, like it has wildflowers and clover and like, but it's no grass. It's just all these like, you know, maybe 6 to 12 inch tall plants that like you can put out. And someone from another Convergence told me about it. I'll have to find it at some point and share it.
It might be the place I ordered some seeds from, because I think they had something like that.
I think more people are doing that these days.
I just, I feel like it plays into my laziness. And
well, and it's more sustainable, right?
Yeah, it's like it's environmental, it's less work, it's pretty. Yeah. It's like it checks a lot of boxes.
Yes.
Oh.
Now, are any of your plants that you're doing tea plants? Like, if we're going to get back to the kind of subject.
I've been doing chamomile this summer, which isn't, a true tea, but that's what I've been doing lots of mint and chamomile because I can do them in pots.
Those are great.
Kind of fun. So I've got
I
like a
love
jar
those.
of dried flowers. But
Yeah.
that's where I'm at. I'm on herbal teas.
Well, Shaelee's a perfect like source for tea stuff. If you ever like, what kind of things are great for tea? Like that's her job. That's her thing that she does, and she knows so much about plants. And so if you really want to get into like, teas and drying herbs and like I haven't gotten there yet. I will get there one day because my husband loves drinking tea. And so one day I really want to like start doing that. And when I do, I'm going to Shaelee and I'm gonna be like, how do I do this? Like, I don't know how.
Tea has been a new thing for me with the pandemic.
Mhm.
I've always
Yeah.
I used to work brunch, so I've always had access to free coffee. And
Mhm.
um tea was like I found myself at the beginning of all this like making coffee over and over. And I was like, I've always not discounting my love of coffee, but it's like I think I just want something warm to drink. So I
Yeah.
kind of started experimenting with which teas I was okay with. And
Yeah. And there's so many different, like, it's like getting a hug from your mug. Like if you can
yeah,
combine
it's like
different,
it's
like,
just comfort. You hold on to it.
yeah. Yeah. So right now you're drinking coffee.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Just black.
And and Kira, you live in Washington, don't you? Near
Yeah.
Tacoma?
I'm in University Place, which is a suburb
Yeah,
of Tacoma.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what I thought you said, Tacoma.
Mhm.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, the nice thing, like I totally drink coffee too. Most mornings are like this.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've got the French press.
Yeah, especially with the permaculture convergence. I have my kefir, my big thing, which this morning is like it's a lot of cocoa powder with a little bit of decaf in it, and then my tea, and that's like a matcha with a bunch of herbs ground into it. Um, but yeah, it's so nice how we can just drink things and be refreshed and sustained all the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
My coworkers used to joke that I held my coffee like I was having a religious experience.
But it
Yeah.
can be like a religious experience. I mean, so much ceremony comes around food and like
Mhm.
my religious experiences as a Christian, like my religion has so much ceremony and like and there is a lot around food, there's a lot around community, there's a lot like people sharing. It's a experience. It's a thing. And I think we've lost that. Like people don't, take advantage of that as much.
Hmm.
Yeah. I just I don't know. I think if you have a chance to be indulgent and it's not gonna hurt anybody, be indulgent.
Yeah.
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 Is there uh, any like garden tea type or coffee additions that you grow yet? I think my
Um,
garden is, I think a garden and the gardens I get to work and walk in is like the favorite indulgence because then even work or it feels like indulgence because gardens are so lovely.
oh, I know. I neglect things in the house because I do my stuff outside. Um, no, other than mint and chamomile have kind of been the only things. I have 6 different varieties of mint right now.
Nice.
I, right now I'm working at a garden center at one of the McClendons, which is like not the big box store, but it's still a chain, more local chain. But every time we get new herbs in, I end up bringing home like 4. So
What kind of mints are you growing right now?
yeah, I really like it. I find myself trying to like steer strangers away from the worst chemicals. So
Yeah.
I like to call it, I don't know. I've just started thinking of it as my like day-to-day activism.
Yeah.
Like, oh, if you want to kill clover, you could just let your lawn grow a little taller and shade it out. Don't don't do this first. Try this.
Yeah. Don't do pesticides. Don't kill your other things. I think people my father-in-law likes to kill moths. Like I think he finds it to be his like nemesis here in the Pacific Northwest. And he's from Wisconsin and has a house here that he like takes care of the lawn for my anyways, weird detail. So anyways, he's always trying to get rid of the moss. And I'm like, why? That's like the best part of the Pacific Northwest. Like, because you could just lay on it.
I know, it's so soft and springy, and
Yeah.
like when my kiddo was smaller, I would wrestle with him on it, and it's so soft, I didn't have to worry about it. Just throw
Yeah.
him.
It's like nature's pillow.
Yeah, it can be fun when talking to people about moss and clover to speak to how moss, like if you have a moss and clover lawn, for example, instead of grass, doesn't need water, it stays green, it needs to be mowed less, there's like beneficial bugs, there's like all these like really great things. So maybe that can be like turned on its head, that no, you don't want to kill the clover, you want to eliminate the grass and encourage the clover.
Oh, I try. If they even feel a little bit receptive, I'm like, clover is great. It stays green all year. Soft. You can mow it exactly the same.
Yeah. I got to work in a nursery for a few years out here in Squim, and I felt like it was the most dreamy job because I just got to learn about plants, the right plant for the right place, and help people find the plant they were looking for. What a good purpose to life as far as like what we're doing with our time. Yeah,
Mostly like it.
Mostly. I worked for a really small nursery with like really wonderful bosses that worked extremely hard.
Yeah.
And I got to spend a lot of my time just taking care of the gardens where we worked. Because if there was a low movement, I just got to go into like garden love mode and make plant end caps that looked pretty and study. They had such an emphasis on education. It was cool. Have you ever mixed your mints with chocolate, or like do you put them on chocolate cakes?
I haven't yet. I'm not a big, like, I cook a lot and I love to cook, but baking has always been like, I don't know. Like, I went to school for cooking and I still find baking intimidating.
Are you a chocolate person? Do you like chocolate?
I like dark chocolate.
An easy segue from incorporating herbs into baking is to make a flourless chocolate cake. There's a 3-ingredient one. Have you made that? It's like just melted butter, chocolate chips, and eggs.
Oh, okay.
Really simple.
I know I've
pretty easy to pull off. And you put fresh mint on it. It's really good.
It was like, there you go. Good morning, Blair.
I'll have to look into it.
It's like, I see you there.
Having the cup of coffee, kind of opening the eyes. It was.
Cheers.
I listened to that music last night that we heard. You know, I taped a little bit of it on my phone and spent the next hour or two after we got off just listening to some of that music that was played. It was so nice.
They're on Facebook too, and they sometimes post their videos on Facebook of times like when they were talking about the winter solstice. I think that's on Facebook. That event that they did. So there's some. You're not on Facebook though, but they do post things like on different places. So definitely look them up. They're just beautiful people.
Yeah.
So Kira, you said you have 6 varieties of mint.
Yes.
That's
a lot of-
awesome.
Is there one that you think grows the best, or that's your favorite?
Yeah.
I really like apple mint. My apple mint is doing really well, and it's a little bit more subtle.
Mm-hmm.
I do not like the pineapple mint as much as I expected, but it's very pretty.
I have
It
a
smells
chocolate
really
mint,
good. Yeah.
and that one's doing really well for me. But I haven't heard of apple mint.
I haven't heard of it either. That sounds like something I would love.
I wish
Yeah.
I had a picture. It's got like bigger leaves, and they're almost they're a little bit soft, like fuzzier almost. And it smells amazing. But that's my favorite, and it's grown the tallest. And I like that it's not as I don't know, I still love mint, so nothing wrong with the others, but it's not as intense. It's just like a nice mild, and it does very well in tea, and it's good to chop up and add in salad.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry for the clicking. I had to do a host swap and I added it to the schedule. Which mint was that you said that you love?
Apple.
Oh, apple mint. Okay, apple mint. Yeah,
Are
that
your
one has like
mints,
a rumply leaf. Doesn't it have
Yeah,
like
it's
more
like,
of a rumple leaf?
yeah, I like them.
Mm-hmm.
Right now they've got cute little flowers on top, so they're covered in bees.
Oh, that's wonderful, especially this time of year when there's not as many flowers.
Mhm.
I've been really impressed how lemon balm and catnip grow voraciously everywhere that their little
Yeah.
seed pods can fall. So they're not as, lemon balm isn't that great raw, but catnip is. Have you grown catnip?
I have never tried Catnip. We had it at the store and I didn't buy it when we had it. And then I, after, found out like all these things that it can do for us. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's like the total unsung hero of sleepy, calming, anti-spasmodic, relaxing herbs that, you know, like we know chamomile, everybody knows chamomile, but like catnip, it's a really nice, soothing thing that just grows like the dickens all year. You don't have to wait for just those little flowers. You can harvest it. If you do try growing catnip, I've heard a lot of feedback that people who get catnip at the store, it dies easily. I think the catnip plants at stores are often imported from more southern nursery type of conditions. Anyways, there was a wild catnip like issue in the, I mean, it's wonderful, but in the orchard where I am farming, there's lots and lots of catnip that's been growing here for, I don't know, at least 15 years. So it's a really great regionally adapted catnip. And if anyone wants seeds, I could mail you a little pack.
I have
Wow.
cat mint. Have you tried that, Shaelee?
Cat mint?
Yeah.
That has like tinier leaves that are more lobed, right?
Yeah. It
Yeah,
hasn't, like, it's not as big as like some of my other mint plants, but the cats really love it still.
cat
Like,
mint.
you know, and I like to plant things for my cats. Nothing brings me more joy than to see one of my cats like rolling around on a plant and like knowing that they're rolling around on it because they love it. But
How do you
Most
use
of
the
the
catnip,
lettuce I
Shaelee?
grow.
Do you do teas with it or?
Yeah, I do. I just did a quick little search. They're both in the Nepeta family.
Yeah.
They have a different habit. Yeah, I use catnip in teas. I have a peace tea that it's a rather large component in, and then and another one that I made that has just a lot of plants that thrive here for like all-purpose tonic. It's like hawthorn and rose hips and yarrow and catnip and elderflowers and elder berries. So I mix it in those and I just eat it. Catnip's actually one of my favorite teas to just like rip off a handful, stuff in my cup, pour water on, and then chew as I'm eating it. I love like fresh garden tea. I honestly don't like, I mean, like tea is, or like dried loose leaf tea is kind of my jam. And about 80% of my work right now is just like growing, harvesting, making tea blends to, I'm a tea monger at the farmer's market. But I don't actually drink that hardly at all. I love just picking teas from my garden. I got into that with my daughter, especially of just, you know, like you need to go outside and you need to do something. So we'd wander around the yard and just like pick rose petals and pick this and that. And it's a really nice thing to do with anybody really, just to wander around, see what you can eat and pour boiling water on it and have a nibble. And from our like biological health perspective, I think like, I don't know, have you ever been to like essential oil classes or studied natural medicine at all? Like there's all these really super healing compounds in plants, but when we dry them or extract the oils, like the plant is getting farther and farther away from its vibrant healing self. But right when we pick it, you know, that's like as potent and beneficial as it can possibly be. So getting all those like super fresh compounds into our body, it's like, that's right. And in our own soil, I'd like to think of plants as these super cool little phyto factories that are these amazing specialist engineers that are creating these powerful medicines that we're just starting to research. Like we don't even know what all the compounds do of plants. And it seems like whenever we research a plant, we're like, oh, look at this. It has this cool thing that heals this random whatever. So I can just trust that mystery and nibble on plants all the time and be like secretly smug that I'm healing myself of something that I don't even know that I have.
And there's a lot of indigenous knowledge too, right? Like where they've done all this research, or not research, but they've lived with the plants, you know, so they know what's going to happen with them.
Yeah, the what is it? The Pojar by McKinnon and Pojar. It's called Plants of the Northwest Coast.
Yeah, I have
something like that. But it's a field. Yeah, that field guide. Plants of the Pacific Northwest. I had like at least 5 college classes that use that as one of our textbook, and it has a lot of really good, just like tidbits of indigenous knowledge. And there's this gray book that is the ethnobotany of the Pacific Northwest that has different stuff than that book. And I love how all the kind of tribal knowledge is different. And it was surprising to see that some groups thought that snowberry, Symphoricarpus albus, the little white one, some groups thought that might be poisonous, and other groups thought that it might be a subtle medicine, and other people thought it was a good chicken food. And so it's just like, it's so interesting.
Well, and shampoo too, right? Like they've used it for soap and bathing, I believe, the berries. From what I've read about it. Interesting. I went to a permaculture plant exchange once up in, I don't remember where, but in between Seattle and Portland, or in between Seattle and Olympia. And it was Johan Kuntz, or Johan, I forget how to say his last name, but that was the first time that I'd ever had like tea, like water and herb thing. He's like, oh, here, have this. And I was like, okay. And it was like mint and stinging nettle. And he had just like thrown all these wild crafted things into the water, just like, and here, now we have this nice fresh tea. And I was just like, oh, that's interesting. Like I had never really tried that. And it wasn't hot, so it was like a cool tea, refreshing, middle of summer kind of thing. But I thought that's really nice, like, you know, a different way to drink water.
Totally. It's like infusing our water with super powerful plant allies. And then they become us, you know? Like our cells have to be made out of that stuff that we're putting in us. So it's like, you are nettle root, Cassie.
Yeah. I am nettles now.
Has anyone had any success growing lemongrass up there? Or tried to in a microclimate? A little bit.
I haven't tried.
I like stretching things. Now the thing about it, lemongrass is the further north you get, the smaller the problem with it taking over the world. So you guys, lemongrass is one of those things that I was shocked when I moved down here to Florida. People are like, no, why'd you put that lemongrass there? I'm like, whoa, what's the problem? You know, I struggled to grow it in Oklahoma, you know? But here people, it's almost kind of like the invasive. And so don't plant it. So I would say if you're struggling a little bit, just be super happy because it's one of those sorty invasives. But I was just curious because it's everywhere here.
Yeah, it's really hard to let it grow well here. I've tried it in the garden and it didn't do very much. I've had it in a big pot. Actually, this summer I got a start and I had it in a tiny little pot and it's living in my greenhouse. I have like a little 8x4 tiny greenhouse thing, shed with a missing part of its roof. So it's not very warm. It's a cold little like greenhouse frame, but I think it'll overwinter there because it seemed to overwinter with moisture in a window poorly. So I'm going to pot it up bigger. And a fun climate stretching experiment. I had a pomegranate live. It hasn't borne fruit, but it might just take a couple years to get established. So yeah, I'm thinking maybe in 10 years I'll have pomegranates so I could put a little hoop house around it. I have yerba mate in pots.
Ooh.
And I'm confident that will live through the winter in like an unheated kind of frame. And I have 3 citrus that are in a unheated, like, you know, greenhouse type room. Yeah.
There's a citrus that does well here in the Pacific Northwest. And of course, I won't remember the name. I have one.
Flying dragon?
No.
Is it like a yuzu?
Yeah, it was a yuzu. Yeah. And Burnt Ridge was selling it, and then also One Green World was selling it.
You guys had Flying Dragon is a variety that I think will grow way up your direction.
It might be a type. It might be a named variety of yuzu.
Yeah, I'm bad at remembering scientific names. What about Sweetgrass? It's something that I tried so many times.
Yeah, that'll grow here.
Oh man, I mean, I was introduced to it in a glass of milk, in a jar of milk when I was like just driving down the road in some mountain road in Washington, and said fresh milk 1 mile, and I came in, and the lady charged me like $3 for the jar, this big jar of milk, and I started drinking it, and I was like, whoa, you lady put some sort of sugar in this milk, you know, or something. And it's just like amazing. The cows were fed sweetgrass, and sweetgrass milk was just like the best milk I've ever tasted in my life. So
that's crazy. I haven't heard of that. Yeah, I got seeds. I don't know. It was really early on in my trying to grow medicinals. I think I was probably just like 20 or something, and I got the traditional medicinals from Horizon Herbs, their little like lifeline kit, and I'm pretty sure that had sweetgrass seeds in it. And they were one of the plants that just did super well in the kind of clay soil of Port Angeles.
I like her seed mixes. I think like she has a really interesting thing going on there with traditional medicinals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it? Horizon?
Yeah, I think it's Rico Czech who does the Lifeline seed kit. It's strictly medicinal. That's what it is.
Yeah, strictly medicinal.
Strictly medicinal seeds. Yeah.
And you can sign up to get her seed catalog. Like she does a really cute illustrated seed thing. I really like it.
Yeah, another fun seed catalog as far as illustrations and knowing they support good things is the Fedco Seeds. I just got their winter tree. Yeah, you like seed Fedco too. I just got their fruit tree and like whatever winter dormant catalog. It's so awesome. There was these like little how to build boxes for apple maggots and all this information about seed sovereignty and the different farms and indigenous groups that they support. And like the Fedco seed catalog is this like tool of activism masquerading as a seed catalog. I so appreciate that.
I mentioned this before, but they're a worker co-op. So if you like want to support people and not just a corporation, they are like all worker co-op, like their people own their business. So like that's a really fun, like I found out about them when I was working at Burnt Ridge. So I kind of felt weird being like, I'm gonna go buy my plants from Maine, especially since they bought some of their plants from us. Like it was kind of this like back and forth, and I thought, okay, I don't know. But I really want to support businesses like that because I think that's like the next, you know, if we're gonna get out of capitalism or out of like this like system, that seems to be a good route to go to kind of like transition into a more people focused way.
For sure. Yeah, I think about that with the ethics of like shipping, you know, it's like, are we contributing to this like disgusting use of resources, or are we co-opting a system that's already there, that's not going anywhere because of the dominant culture, and like using that existing infrastructure to try to build up the strength of good organizations.
I tell you, Shaelee, you say that so many times, and every time I just get a smile on my face. You're just kind of, you know, it's like this crowbar. You're like, someone handed me a crowbar. I'm just going to crowbar my way into this thing because I have this crowbar called capitalism or business structure. And it's definitely stacking functions of something that might be toxic. Like, yeah, someone killed someone with this crowbar, but like, I'm going to use it. So like,
I'm going to use it to dig a hole and plant a tree.
Change the world, yeah.
I'm going to use their blood as fertilizer for this tree that's going to uplift the ecosystem.
And it's not just you just speak that, Shaelee, but like when I'm hanging out with you, you live that. Like you're like, no, how are we going to make dinner happen this way? And let's just make this happen. And it's it permeates all portions of your life, and it's fun.
Yeah, cool. Thank you, David. I appreciate how I hear you like talking about that too. How if we can be, I don't know, like
go to school or be successful in our own life in different ways or navigate these systems, we can learn capitalism so that we can dismantle it. I think about that because a lot of permaculture people are small business owners. And it's awesome if we can try to be successful in what we do, because then we can use it's like guerrilla warfare, and we have this monkey suit of this, you know, thing. And then we can go about in society and be like, look, you can be a business that doesn't have to be exploitive. You can be in this world and like willingly relinquish power. You don't have to be a nonprofit or a cooperative or a B corporation and put yourself in a shackle of how it has to look. You can just do it because it's the right thing to do. And then you can have more liberty, you know, like an LLC can do whatever it wants to. It can design itself to be the most generous community benefit organization ever, because it has the freedom to just creatively respond to its unique community and be like, oh, this is what it should look like here. I'm just going to do that because I'm a corporation and I do what I want, you know?
And you can get your tax write-offs from it too, you know?
What was that?
And you can get tax write-offs, like stack all these functions. And it's like, in some ways it's better to be.
Oh yeah, because it's community benefits. So it's a marketing expense or something like that. But yeah, I really appreciate that, you know, so in this conversation about what permaculture is with somebody this weekend, they were saying that it was this, you know, kind of like a traditional skills going back to the way things were, this like, almost like backwards thinking. And it's like, no, I mean, it's important to honor that and incorporate that. But in permaculture, there's this fusion of like, look, we're on Zoom, we're using Slack, we're learning how to use, it's almost like, I don't know, using the tools of the enemy against them. And the enemy is like thoughts and processes that destroy people. You know, so let's like take the tools that have been used for destruction, but rather it's like reformatting them, you know. Yeah. I think there's some clever principle wording that applies to that. But yeah, it's pretty cool, this opportunity we have to just be like, no, it's got to be good. No.
Thank you, Shaelee, for saying that the enemy is the thought process, not the people.
Yeah.
You know, and it's so important to see the beauty in humans and their nature, but to realize it's the thought process that's degenerative. So.
Yeah. What's that, Cassie?
I was just curious about Blair, and are you growing plants? Are you doing anything? If we want to talk tea and stuff, I didn't know if you were doing any of that, or if you were just interested in listening to us talk about herb gardens and things.
I mean, I don't have any. I do have stuff growing at the house, you know, but I don't have anything that's like burning in my belly to sort of bring up and talk about it, though. But I do appreciate listening. I do have various herbs around the house, and actually, you know, like chamomile, I grow it. I don't really, it kind of spreads around my garden a fair amount, you know, and I don't really actually know how to use it that well. I know that it's good for teas, and I've done a couple of those, but it's not something I get into regularly. But, you know, I mean, I just appreciate hearing, you know.
Yeah.
Do you ever go for walks and pick your chamomile and put it in a fresh cup of hot water and nibble on the chamomile blossoms? Have you done that before?
Just the blossoms, not the, do you ever, is that where you kind of search out the blossoms of the chamomile? That's the main.
Yeah, I let it be a pretty thing. And then once it starts blossoming and they're at flowers, I just put my hands in it and go, boom, and I pull out all the little chamomile flowers in my hand. And generally I just put them in my cup, and then I walk around and like maybe get a little lavender, a little mint, or blackberry leaves, but often just chamomile. And maybe a little catnip, because chamomile and catnip are super nice just to chew, like a herb tea soup thing. And yeah, it's kind of fun. They have a nice little flavor, and then all those whatever's healing and therapeutic about chamomile, it's super soothing. So it's nice to just like get every little drop of that good stuff by eating it up.
Chamomile and which one?
Catnip. Catnip has a nice chewable texture. I love lemon balm. Lemon balm is one of my favorite garden ones, but lemon balm is not as awesome to eat. If you want to eat lemon balm, you have to like cut it up more and like put it in soup or in a stir fry or something so it
Yeah.
cooks down more, because it's got this like
My husband loves it. Like he will eat lemon balm.
fresh.
He just loves, yeah, he loves the taste.
Oh, like I do too, but the texture makes me like cough or something. So
He
maybe
does
it's just
mine.
me. Maybe other people can eat lemon balm because it's super good for your nervous system. So as much as you can pack lemon balm in your body, it's a really therapeutic agent.
Mm.
Yeah, lemon balm essential oil is like $50 for the tiniest little bottle because it's such a good medicine. And we can grow it like it's nobody's business up here. So that's a nice one.
I just like eating fresh leaves of mint, just because those are so refreshing. Like in the morning to grab a piece of mint while I go let ducks and chickens out. It's like this, like, wake up, good morning.
Yeah.
You know.
I have a holy basil in a pot in my room too.
Oh, yeah.
And that's one of my favorite little nibblies. I think the mint, the lemon balm, and the holy basil. I bet chamomile would be good too, but it's not. I keep on trying to make it go weedy where I live, but it just hasn't taken off here yet. I just think we don't get enough sun. But anyways, whenever I'm stressed, one of my favorite things to do is just to like put my face in a plant and just like do that, or to rub my hands on the leaves and just go like this. And it just like, I replace my unhappy feelings with a face full of volatile oils, and I can't be as bummed out as I was.
Isn't catnip like? Is there like a brand name or something for like cat foods that are like like the treat for a cat? A catnip. I've always heard that something about like the sort of the cookie for a cat or something. There's some product.
Oh yeah, it makes cats freak out. So like what catnip does to cats is it's like a crazy drug. It makes them feel euphoric.
And it affects each cat differently. Like some don't even like it. Like I have 4 cats and one that really, really loves it. And the other 3 are like, meh. Like they're all different in how they, I mean, it's like anything, like with humans, we all react differently to things. Like Shaelee's like chamomile, and I'm like, eh. I'm good.
Yeah, I love eating my chamomile. But so catnip for people though, it's there are some peer-reviewed research papers you can find on the internet about how catnip affects people. And it's a antispasmodic, soporific. It makes you sleepy and it makes your muscles relax. And yeah, that vein of biological response is how catnip affects us. And
I was just gonna say, I forget, Blair, where are you located?
Olympia.
Okay. So you're like in the city or like suburban?
Yeah, just kind of like, I mean, in town.
Okay.
is it freezing where anybody else is right now? That's my other genuine convergence experience, is that I'm in this unheated barn and it is so cold. I have on like, I don't know, all the wool and layers that I can right now.
Oh, wow. It's below 50. It's 48.
What was that, Julie?
Well, I was going to say it's 48.7 here.
That's kind of cold.
Yeah.
But it's not inside your house though.
Yeah. Oh, that's outside. Yeah. Inside is 65. Okay. That's this room. We just keep this room heated. The rest is like whatever. But how do you heat that space up there?
How could I?
Oh, okay.
Is that what you're saying? Well, like up here, it's an unfinished kind of upstairs in a barn. So there's big vents in the ceiling and the walls don't have insulation. So, I mean, I could have an electric blanket. Yeah. That would probably be the most reasonable thing to do. We've tried using space heaters before, but that just feels so stupid to me in this space. There's this old timer, when he see people do things, be like, what are you trying to do? Heat up Clallam County? And so I think about that when there's open doors or drafty spaces that are attempted to heat up. And it's like, just layer, you know, I'm not going to heat up a yurt. I'm not going to heat up some other places. And maybe like a wood stove for a little bit, because that's a whole different thing. But it's just, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see we have more friends here. Sue, Fortune 3, Norm. And the rest of our like morning tea time chat, do any of you have anything you'd like to, you happy just hanging out? Is there any of the herbs for tea, garden, how you doing this morning stuff you'd like to pop in with? Kira, I don't know what you said because your mute's on, but I hear you talking.
I just like to mime at people.
It's okay, it's kind of fun.
Oh, I just said I have to go now, but I enjoyed our chat. And I hope you guys have a good day while I'm at work.
Yeah, you can do this sort of thing in Zoom too. With our little camera space. Yeah. Oh.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for coming, and we'll see you later today.
Yeah, I have to work, but I'm going to try and pop on when I get back.
Yeah, have fun at the nursery.
Yeah. With luck, I will spend hours watering.
Yeah, well, if you really can water for hours, you could possibly call in with your earpiece, and you could listen quietly if you want to.
I don't know if I've done
do your job while you're at work, but I think that's such a fun thing about our convergence is that we can do that. We can turn off our camera and do our chores and still kind of participate.
Oh yeah, I've definitely had it on like while making meals. So
yeah, it's cool.
Hey,
Well, have fun.
Have a good one, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, hey Norm, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I'm just waking up and I enjoy listening to you guys in the morning. And the household is asleep, so this is my moment.
I know, it's so early. I drug myself out of bed in the dark.
It's definitely fall.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, when you go to certain beaches, there's like the shallow, and then it kind of drops off like this. I feel like this happened on September 21st this year. It's like nature was like, oh, it's the fall equinox. Here we go, bonk, and there we go. It started getting super real.
It's super foggy today, and you know, I got kind of used to seeing the smoke there for a while. So now it's kind of like this weird, like it's not smoke, it's fog. We're at that point where it's really fog. So it's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so nice that we all had a good rain. Everybody has had a good rain now, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we had over 8 inches in the last week and a half.
Mm.
Wow.
Where are you?
It's a town site called Silverton, Washington.
Mm.
So it's about an hour from east of Everett, up in the Cascades. It's a little off-grid community.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, that's cool. I've been wondering if there is some, like, I don't know, some beautiful connectivity and restoring of the soil that's happening with all the big smoke plume that went around the West Coast. Like, are there, I don't know, some little, maybe there's like a little bacteria or like minerals that can actually live in the ash particulate that got to go everywhere and now be watered into the soil. Like, is there, I don't know. It's just kind of a quandary of like, is there something that, like, if there, I would imagine there certainly would be trace minerals because that always happens in ash. You can kind of analyze what was there in the ash of something.
The fires are all out now, right? There's no burning fires anymore, are there?
I just was on Facebook last night or this morning, and one of my friends down in Oregon was saying like they're now on a campsite because their house, you know, they had house damage from the last fire, and they almost like had to evacuate again because of another fire. So I don't know if like, I think it got cleared up. Like she's like, we didn't have to evacuate the RV park, but they're on standby, kind of like just.
Oh man.
Yeah, so I think it's still down in Oregon. There's some, but even with the rain, it seems like there were some still burning. Yeah, it's crazy.
I am just looking at the NOAA fire map just for our.
Yeah.
I wonder if I can screen share. I'm going to try it again on this computer. Do you guys mind if I try that? I haven't been able to screen share so far. I'm going to see if it works.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah, it says you're starting to screen share.
Did it work?
Yeah.
It
So
works.
yeah,
Shaelee.
these are our active fires now.
Nice.
So not in Oregon or Washington.
So they must have gotten that taken care of. That's good.
Yeah, but
Oregon
I
is
heard
bigger
about
than
this
Canada.
fire. Yeah, so this zone is still dangerous.
Yeah.
I have family here in the corner of Yosemite, and my brother, they drove up to spend time with my mom, and my sister went down to my dad, and then it started burning around there. So that was kind of like a, unavoidable thing for them. Do any of you have family that has been displaced or had their places burned down?
Just a friend. But
Yeah.
they had a tree fall into their house, and their neighbor's house is completely gone, and they can see the fire line at their house. Like they had an RV that they used for storage, and that's completely gone. And then there's like this line of like, this is how how close the fire got, and they can see that from their house, which is kind of like just crazy to think of. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that fire, that it came up in one of the presentations yesterday, the fire line, sort of the indigenous knowledge of using certain areas to burn so that certain fire lines wouldn't spread in certain directions. I thought that was kind of interesting. I mean, that's a very detailed set of knowledge I could see being lost fairly quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And probably difficult to recreate in some levels unless somebody's pretty knowledgeable about wind directions and movement of fire.
Yeah, is that using like controlled burns to direct where the fire will go? Is that what you?
I thought it was more like using controlled burns so that if a fire is moving and spreading, like not at the same time and later, right? Then there's a break in that sort of a fire corridor.
Yeah. I think Fortune 3, did you want to say something? No?
Okay. There was a hand raising. I'm glad you saw that too, Cassie. It was there and then not. And someone had asked about that, and I couldn't really see how to easily do that on my screen. Do you know how to hand raise?
Yeah, I couldn't do that either.
Yeah, you have to go into participants, I think. And then you can raise your hand if you're on mobile, like I just raised mine. There's like a little side arrow next to your name. So do you see that, Blair?
On the bottom there, I just used that little one there.
Does it happen when we're in hand mode too? Or when we're in host mode?
Yeah, you can still do it in host mode. I just did it.
Wait, I just got renamed. Oh, but I'm not in history. Oh.
Yeah, I am not seeing how I can raise my hand, but that's okay.
Clicked on the participant little like pop-up window thing.
Yeah, I'm looking at that, and I can click on myself, and I can do more. I can rename myself and edit my picture, but I can't.
Mine's on the bottom of the, like below the names.
Shaelee, you won't be able to do it.
Oh, I can't do it? Okay.
Because you are now the main host. And you
okay, so co-host can do it, but main host cannot.
Yeah.
But somewhere
You'll
in
just
there.
be raising your hand for yourself, really.
Yeah, I want to pay attention to me. Okay. Yeah, all right. It's like a flag for when we need to do more self-care.
Fortune, are you just practicing raising your hand, or do you want to talk? Just practicing. Unless you're muted, and then we can't hear you. If
Here,
you're
I'm
really...
going to unmute you, Fortune, if I can, to hear if you're saying anything.
Oh, Fortune's hand is raised. Fortune 3.
Would you like to say anything, Fortune? You are unmuted now, and your hand is up.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Tim from Olympia.
Oh,
Hi.
Yeah, I've been enjoying the last day or so, and I actually wanted to throw out an idea I had of a friend that just cleared about an acre, slightly sloped, and she wants to do a lavender garden and kind of a monocrop thing, and they're suffering listening to me going on and on about, you know, trying to maybe swale it, maybe do some things that are a little more than just an acre of. She grows these huge, beautiful lavenders, and she's a hospice RN, and just a dynamo. She's busy, busy, busy. But I wanted to say maybe she could include some things that the rabbits like to eat with the lavender so that they hang out there. I just wondered if anybody had any ideas about how that acre could be more than just monocrop lavender.
Yeah. Does anyone else want to share? I have some ideas living in lavender capital, peninsula town. But I can wait to speak if anyone else has any ideas.
I don't have any ideas.
Yeah, so small lavender farms, monocrop lavender farms are super common. And if your friend is really busy with a full-time job, that's a really easy thing to do in your landscape that isn't lawn, that is good for the bees and like a nice pollinator. So, I mean, it's not terrible to monocrop lavender in that sense, just because of it's an awesome bee crop because they have a super long blooming season. So there is a benefit to our pollinator buddies. But in general, and if it's left on the flat, there's like a lot of human and potential fossil energy that needs to go into adding swells and berms if she doesn't have the time to do like a work party or draft animals. So there's like a big resource intensiveness to create that landscape. And lavender does just fine in the flat, droughty, north wet condition. After a little bit of watering the first year, lavender needs absolutely no water and will just be this kind of thing that will cover the ground with flowers reliably and, you know, good volatile oils. So, you know, it's not too bad, but monocropping isn't that great. And it would be a lot healthier if there was diversity. So what I would try to steer her towards to make it attainable would be to make a big flower border on the edge or have an island in the middle. There's a few really great lavender farms here where people have just like in the middle, a circle. A lot of lavender farms like the kind of order and structure that lavender does in its rows. But she can design like what is that called? A labyrinth. She can make a labyrinth out of it or put a nice circle in the middle and then on the outside of it. Like maybe she might be open to designing it in a more of a circle shape where they make pathways that go around, and she could plant like poppies and dahlias and borage. And there's a lot of resources on different seed mixes, or if you get into your local community, there's probably just like, yeah, that's so pretty. There's probably seed, like seed swapping type groups where she could get a lot of local annual and perennial flowers to mix in there. So I would kind of honor her busy full-time desire to not be super resource intensive and changing the topography or making it a whole different thing, but have a pocket of biodiversity right in the middle with all these flowers, and same thing along the edges. And then that's going to be good for a lot more pollinator species, and rabbits would love to eat like little bits of like peony tubers. That's another drought tolerant, sun friendly, perennial flower that could just be beautiful.
She might be inspired by Googling labyrinth Lavender Labyrinth. There are lots of really cool pictures,
Wow.
really, really pretty things out there. Like, yeah, that's a traditional labyrinth, you know, like, or not traditional labyrinth, but traditional lavender planting, right? Like to do just a straight roast. But like
Yeah.
what I'm seeing online are like some really, really cool designs that would like speak to the nature of permaculture and designing, and like, you know, you can talk to her about the edge spaces and how they're more healthier. So the more edges she has, like, and she can create all these little pockets.
Yeah, and I love talking different plant guilds and matrices for what to put in different areas. I've been gardening here for 19 years. I've been on the Olympic Peninsula taking care of gardens, like continually staying with one or, you know, a few pieces of land that for just work in different family and friends. I've been able to kind of root myself to gardens for a long time in the mountains and in the flatlands. So I feel like there's this, you know, little treasure in my mind of seeing how different things respond in different places. And it totally apply, you know, like Olympia is not quite the same as here, but I'm happy to share my experience as far as what can actually grow without water in different climates here. Oh, that's beautiful, Cassie. Yeah.
If you want to look at that, that's like a design that I saw.
Wow.
And that's just like, I mean, that's a lot of work, but you know, you can simplify that design, right? Like you don't have to be as intense as that is.
Wow, that is pretty incredible. You know, I think works part-time. Her and her husband and I are good friends. We work together often, and and I think, you know, she's looking for that design participation. You know, they asked me about soils and stuff, and you know, for being a builder, electrician, renewable energy specialist is what I do, but I've studied Elaine Ingham's work and made her compost, and my plants have just exploded. And so I'm always going, wow, you could, you know, they're going to just plow up this ground and maybe disc it. You know, it used to have horses in the field. Now they took down all the fence posts and are just going to plow it up and start over. And I'm going, well, you know, so now you're back to square one with your soil, but it should be fairly fertile in that it had animals on it for quite a while. So it's going to be kind of a blank slate. She has other kind of rock gardens and beautiful landscaping. Has a wonderful flair for, you know, the presentation on her property. And I know she wants it to be fairly low maintenance. I don't know what she plans to do with all the lavender. She gives a bunch of it away. But I love the idea of, you know, the flower bordering and creating something that keeps her involved every year with the flower part. You know, the lavenders, you know, that just keep coming back. She has beautiful round, you know, that are 5 feet across, these big lavender spaces already, that I think she just realizes it's simple to do. She loves it. She loves to watch the bees, you know, and it's like, okay, she asked me to, you know, for my 2 cents worth. And, you know, it's like, well, you know, I think that would be great, you know, just in terms of species to include. That maybe I'll have her contact you, Shaelee. And
for sure. Yeah, my email's on the thing, or if you just email Northwest Permaculture, Cassie can forward it to me, and then I can reach you back. Yeah.
If you, I don't know, were you here yesterday? Did you see Laura Sweeney doing the rain tree interview? Or like walking around with rain. So she used to be on our board, and I've gone to her house, and she has like this circle area created with lavender, but she has like her laundry drying right around it. So like all of her, anything that dries in that area smells like
gosh.
Like it's such a, like cool double use for
Yeah, and Tim, I was thinking with your kind of expertise being in the building spectrum, maybe having like, like in my mind, I'm seeing like a big circle with these arbors on, like little arbors on the corners on the outside to frame it. And there could be like grapes and a bench, or in the middle, there could be like a little place to sit if she has the, you know, wants like a sitting area or like a place to have tea or something like that. Those are nice things that could make it, you know, having like a place to sit for a minute and enjoy the garden is such a nice bit of placemaking in a space.
Yeah,
Oh,
this
I like
one
that.
has
I like
like
that.
like this arbor like thing around it, which I think is really cool. And then and the one thing that Laura also has is like that's where she dries all her other herbs. Like she hangs them up around the lavender and like has this like herb garden. So if your friend's into harvesting herbs or anything like that, or even drying the lavender, like she could create a space for that.
Right. No, that's good. You know, it's one thing I've been doing a lot this last year is just hanging out with my birds, and I heard this thing about where birds have patches, and I don't feed them in a feeder. I broadcast it in areas, and I move the areas, and you know, I could see the trellises, you know, and a place to sit. You know, obviously it'll be quite the bee show in the lavender. So sitting there just watching the bees is pretty fun. You know, if there's reasons for the birds to come in and hang out too, because there's some of the edible stuff there. And usually if they have places to sit and places to duck under some leaves or something to sit on, they'll come hang out. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
they spot me every morning when I walk out my door, and they're talking, and I feed them, and you know, it's just a real nice way to start the day to watch them do their thing.
Yeah, and somewhere on the edge of that garden, if you incorporated the sunchokes or Jerusalem artichokes, and actual annual sunflowers too. Those are both, like the sunchokes are excellent for wildlife because they have these juicy roots right under the soil that are nice for voles and rabbits and quail and whatever. They have little seeds that the birds love and like kind of safe habitat place for them to hide out. And then sunflowers are wonderful if you don't take them down in the winter. A well-grown sunflower will just kind of hang out November, December, January, and the birds will slowly pick out the seeds.
Yeah. And one thing, one thing Laura's told me, like when designing projects or things like this, is to really talk to the person and be like, what do you like to do? And if she likes to sit out there and watch the birds and things, then you know, like, okay, now I can get some, like, let's get some plants that attract birds and butterflies and other pollinators. Like the bees are great, but let's attract all these other ones too. And that will be kind of like its own little, you know, painting.
Microcosm.
Yeah, and if the goal is really low maintenance in that regard, and she just does not want to have annuals or that sort of thing, it doesn't have to be an intensive perennial garden that you cut down every year. There can be an anchor of like viburnums and aronia and different shrubs that'll get to be 4 to 6 feet high and wide that could make a nice like living visual screen on the edge that the birds would love, with a with a mulchy border that could have like catnip, chamomile, nemesia, these like little tiny seedy things that birds would also love, that could just kind of, you know, fill the space, or like lower herbs like sage. That's another nice spreading, good to keep out competition thing.
I love it. She loves to sit with her stuff and, you know, bask in the fact that she had an idea and pulled it off and then go sit in it. You know, I just see that. When I first met these people, she had a little rock garden with a pole with some, you know, the Buddhist colored flags coming down, and I helped her set that all up, and I cut some white, you know, did some little sort of I Ching rocks in her rock garden, and so ever since I did that, she's like, okay, let's run this by Tim.
Well, you succeeded once, so she's like, okay, he knows things. So
yeah, I just love it when people get, you know, you can just see them, they're just bursting, they're ready to go, and sometimes they just need somebody to cut this or do that, or
just encourage them to like go with their own vision. Like you know, if you just start asking questions, you might inspire her with your questions and get her thinking about plants she likes and things she likes, smells. Ask her about teas she likes. Maybe she can plant tea plants that, like, you know, she could harvest
Right.
later.
Right, and
Yeah.
invite her friends over to come harvest a few things. I know her husband isn't too interested in, you know, a whole bunch of work. You know, he's busy enough as it is, but you know, that sounds manageable, you know, especially she has friends that could come over and, you know, I love it when I have friends that have gardens and stuff and you go over, that's almost the first thing we do. We go walk and see what's ripe and what's ready and pick a little bit of tea and have our conversation, and it's lovely.
And if you take the time to plan something, so they, you know, they, you know, clear the whole field. If they have like a solid plan and the whole thing ends up getting filled with lavenders and shrubs, and they do a thick mulch, or there are some pretty non-toxic covers, like weed suppressant, like coverings that are really, really common to do around lavender farms. And then there's, you know, not much to do, but the whole thing could be, you know, done right in this way where they have an acre of just a whole new beautiful, like outside spacious place to live. And then it's just staying on top of it. You know, it shouldn't be too hard, I guess, after it fills in. I could see having, like, if they have the ability to really input things into there, having a pavered place to sit in the middle of that, or maybe you could help them design a solar powered fountain too.
Oh yeah, that's
make
easy.
birds
I mean,
happy, and just a really nice thing. Yeah.
it sits right next to the shop that they run their business out of, and we've done a pretty extensive sort of renewable energy type heating system in the shop, with solar hot air and hot water, and a lot of that was just for him and I to have a chance to play with it and see what we could do. And you know, there's this little pellet stove called the Wise Way pellet stove. I don't know if you've seen them. They're kind of a different looking thing. It's kind of a Z-shaped 4-inch square tubing, but it has no motors and no printed circuit boards or an augers or anything on it. And Depot now sells them. So the price came way down, but they heat a large space for being such a small unit. And we ran the exhaust up through a 80-gallon hot water tank and put a fan that pulls the smoke up and out, and that heats that 80-gallon tank up, and then we circulate that water into the floor of his shop that we poured with concrete and hydronic tubing. And you know, so instead of just suffering in the cold of the shop because it was too big and too drafty, you know, by being able to heat that thermal mass, you know, so I mean, it sounds like the two of them, the field and the labyrinth, or, you know, maybe a bit of a labyrinth. I can see a spot in the center with pavers, and, you know, they have a budget. So it's not like, you know, they're more interested in, you know, getting in what they want and then not having to do a ton of work. But I don't think a little bit of work is a problem.
Something beautiful and low maintenance.
Yeah, then he's got a kind of a thing going on there. I don't know too many other people. I don't even have that kind of renewable stuff in my shop, but
yeah, it could really be an asset to their business, sort of what you're thinking. I have a question though about what you said. Did you say the exhaust went around a water tank that was heating the floor?
Yeah, well, it's, you know, gas hot water tanks have a tube, an exhaust pipe going right up through the middle of them. And an 80-gallon, what would have been a gas hot water tank, we just took all the burner stuff out of the bottom, and there's a 5-inch chimney stack that goes right up through the middle of the tank. And we piped the stove right up so the exhaust goes into it. And it sort of speaks to the idea of passive systems and active systems. And, you know, sometimes a simple thing as a pump can increase the effectiveness of collecting energy by, you know, tenfold. But they make fans that fit right over the top of stovepipe, and for, you know, situations where you don't get enough draft and the stove smokes and it just doesn't work very well. You can put these fans on and they have a speed control and they're really durable. They run for a long time, and it gives you a real positive exhaust. So because we're turning a couple of angles before we go up into the tank, I actually built the tank up on a stand. So it sits, the bottom of the tank sits 5 feet up off the floor. It's kind of a steel frame, and the exhaust comes out of this pellet stove and goes and makes a 90, and then it goes a 90 up into the tank, and we put the fan on the top of the tank and it shoots it out of the building, and it sucks the exhaust temperatures coming off the stove are about 500 degrees, 500 to 600 degrees, and it takes, an hour and a half or so to start heating that up, and within 2 hours it's warm enough to start adding temperature to the shop. So I mean, usually you want something that's about 30 degrees hotter than your ambient temperature to start delivering that heat. So we can run it up to 90 to 100 degrees, and it gets the floors up to 70 after about 4 or 5 hours. And if you do it a number of days in a row, it makes the shop at almost a perfect 60 degrees, 65 degrees, which is a really nice working temperature. So you can be in there, but you're not wrapped up. I did, understand you're all wrapped up, and I'm thinking, yeah, a little tiny thermal mass underneath your desk or the place that you work. That's, you can even use the electric cable that you set into a little bit of like thin set mortar, and it gives you a little thermal mass, and it keeps the space around you warm, even though the rest of the space isn't warm. So it's kind of like zone heating. But I don't know if I answered your question with the.
Yeah, you did. And then I have one more question about that, but this is like project sharing question time. So if anybody has something else to say, you can raise your hand or put a star in the chat or interject in a second. But I have one more question about your stove setup, Tim. Do you have a pump in the water to get it to the floors, or is it just that convection current that's moving it around?
No, we have a pump. We actually have a hydronic heating manifold, so we can heat different zones in different parts of the shop, or we can concentrate it in one location.
Cool.
And yeah, you have to use a pump, to get things to thermosiphon. That's another whole trick.
Yeah.
But those pumps, they're about 100, 120 bucks a piece, and they pull about an amp, not much more than a 100-watt light bulb. So it's real energy efficient. And water is a great medium for moving thermal units. Yeah, and one thing we've learned is that, even pipes in a ceiling could be really nice. It seems sort of counterintuitive, but radiant heat is an electromagnetic wave, right? So it heats the objects in the space, and then they heat the room. So, it'll heat up. So you want the insulation above the pipes, but it will heat up a space quicker than if it's in concrete on the floor, because it doesn't have to heat the concrete up first. So you can heat a space up and then let it cool off. So some designs that we work on will have in some spaces have hydronic heating in the ceiling and in the floor. So in the spring and fall, where you just want a little heat, when it's cold in the morning, you can kick it on, and it'll warm the space, and then you turn it off. That way your floor isn't hot all day, and you're going, wow, later in the day, I want the fact that the floors are cool, because I have this thermal mass that helps keep me cool.
Yeah, thank you. It's nice
you
to.
Were,
it's
you
like
were
a whole
talking
space.
yesterday about something. Transpiration with plants. In some greenhouses, they'll run copper tubing over the plants and then run the temperature up to 170 degrees or so. And because it's radiant heat, it causes, you know, it's not just convective heat where you're blowing warm air that's really moist in the greenhouse a lot of times. So then the plants don't transpirate when it's still really moist, but the radiant heat's like the sun hitting it. So then it causes them to transpirate more freely. And you can do that on a time sequence. You know, it's more about of learning about how much they like. But, you know, it changes the fact that some air systems do a good job of scrubbing the leaves and scrubbing the plants to help control molds and different things. But, you know, it usually kind of boils down to if you have an inexpensive source of heat, which, you know, we're playing with some biochar, small scale biochar production, even with the small T-LUDs, the small 5-gallon, where you can run a batch for, you know, an hour and end up with 1.5 gallons of biochar and have gone through this point where you can heat and do that transpiration hit in the greenhouse and you know, heat some thermal mass area up in there so that it continues. But that way you're making char. You know, it's the same thing I do with my barbecue. I barbecue with a T-LUD.
Yeah, we have a hand raised from Kirsten, so I want to give her a minute. But I'm chatting you my email, Tim, because I would love to talk more. And I would like to hear more about the greenhouse too, but I want to give Kirsten a bit. She's had her hand raised.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. This actually comes from the conversation about alternative forms of energy and power. And I don't know, Shaelee, when we were down looking at the garden that Marley did out here in that area, we were also beginning to turn a shed into a wood shop beyond that. And I don't know if we showed that to you. There was some construction work going on down there.
Yeah.
So as we were talking, I was like, oh no, this is going to be another source of use of being on the grid electrical. And so it made me want to rethink how that area could be used for another demonstration of an alternative, either solar or something else for heating it and for using the power. It's kind of at Shaelee, there's people with traditional ways of thinking that sometimes just automatically go there. So we'll just plug everything in and start up the machinery and so forth. And I'm like, wait a minute, we still have time to do something different. So I'm interested in, I've been interested in solar anyways, and we're cash poor nonprofit, but what does it do? I guess my question is, do people have contacts with the best folks to talk to about solar? That would be one question.
And this is in the scope of heating a kind of workshop space. It's about the size, a little bit bigger than a 2-car garage, right? That space?
Yeah, that space.
And that's ideally with solar energy.
And the use of the use of power tools, which will definitely be going on down there. So,
that's a Holly, right?
Yeah, and Tim, if you could put your contact information in the chat. I know I was inspired by talking to you, and I imagine others might have been interested in like, I don't know, contacting you for consulting or things such as that. And if you could put that in there, I know I'd appreciate it. And if you have something to say to Kirsten here, anybody, go for it.
So the company that installed the guy who installed the solar at Sangaya, so you're really close to us. We have had a working relationship with them for almost 20 years, and they're really, really fantastic. And I don't know, I can't remember the name of I'm sorry, my brain has holes in it. I have menopause brain, my doctor tells me. But I can get you guys that information because I know how to get a hold of you, and I can just look that up pretty easy here at Sangaya. But they're great, and they really love to share information about solar. So if you want to do it yourself, they'd be happy to tell you what they like to use.
That would be great. Yes, thanks, Sylvan.
Yeah, it's an interesting, I mean, not too much attention is given to solar thermal, you know, where you make hot water. You know, with energy being the precursor to everything we do to some degree, off-grid shops are a unique challenge, you know, because some of the shop tools use quite a bit of power. You know, with photovoltaics are still kind of expensive. You know, I don't go to that a lot. You know, I know a 1500 watt tracking array with a 800 amp hour battery bank. You can run some things for a while, but you know, that's, you know, $15,000 worth of equipment. And
Yeah.
so that's tough to do.
I have a solar or grid powered battery. It was one I bought. I think if I were to have bought it new, it would have been about $1,500 for the set. I got it from a friend who was less than that, but I've used it for power tools a lot. I did a tile floor and some other projects, fixing a house, and this little, I think the company that makes them is Kodiak, and this little battery could do about maybe 8 hours of power tool work before it would be depleted. And it could be charged with the set of solar panels that came with it, or it could be plugged into an existing grid system, pretty low tech. So that might be a kind of a fusion plan where you could use one of the systems that Tim mentioned, like maybe a pellet stove to keep it warm for when it's used as a woodworking space, or solar panels and like passive solar water heating to keep it warm. But it's hard to have the passive water heating be effective in a kind of gray climate that we have most of the year. So I think using a pellet stove or just like a wood stove and letting people, you know, chop wood and carry water as part of using the space, but it's putting a radiant heat with a wood stove type thing. And then maybe everyone can pool together enough to get one of these mobile battery things. Really nice, because if you already have grid energy somewhere, someone can know, okay, I want to do power tools tomorrow. I can have the battery plugged in for a week, like to the sun, or I could charge it overnight in my house. And then they have this need to kind of plan their project and be efficient with it. And then, you know, it's a lot less of an initial investment, but you can still take that anywhere. And then you can use it in your big tent or in other places that the community has a need for power for something. You have it be this little mobile situation that was, you know, less initial investment and able to serve any part of your system.
What size inverter did you have with that? It probably had a battery and an inverter.
It's like 15. It's like a battery thing that has the inverter in it. It's not very big. I can look up the model. But the whole thing is like just this size.
Right.
And it has a place to put in like normal power plugs, USB ports on the front, and on the side, there's a thing where you can plug in solar panels, or you can plug in its little power cords. So I can charge it, you know, I can hook up an array of solar panels, or I can hook it up to the wall and just charge it. When I do farmers markets, I'll bring that so I can heat my water boiler all day without needing to use propane.
Wow.
And it's nice.
Wow. That's, you know, the battery world is the one way we can power things. You know, and with all the new battery power tools and stuff, you can get just about a tool to do anything that's run on batteries. You know, that, you know, it just takes a little bit of capital investment, but I like, you know, it's electrical use is a mathematical thing, and you can calculate by what you want to do, by how much your equipment uses and how much your battery stores. So you can get a rough idea. And most battery books and books or sites talk about, you know, that calculation. It's not real hard, but you do have to kind of evaluate what you're going to do and how long you're going to do it. But, you know, I live close to Yelm, and the Ramtha group out there for years. You know, the whole group has been designing to be off grid, and so I've been sort of waiting for the rest of the culture to catch up with the sort of intensity at which they went about the idea, and from all levels. Some had big budgets, some people had really small budgets, but they paid attention to things like root cellars and battery storage, and they, you know, begged, borrowed, and traded for equipment when they didn't have much of a budget, and getting just a few solar panels. And some of the systems worked good and some of them didn't work very good, but you know, they jumped in and started working on it. And you know, it's a, you know, it's good to have at least some level, a few panels that maybe 500-600 watts, that you can charge a battery bank with. That way you can always slow charge the phones and the battery tools and some lights. You know, I think that's kind of the real basic level that we should probably all be at. You know, the next, you know, if you can run even a small wire, a 12 wire that you run 300 feet to this little outbuilding, you can trickle charge something like what you're talking about. And usually overnight, something will trickle charge. It's like a 2 or 3 amp draw.
Yeah, I found a link to a review of the unit that I have. I'm putting it in the chat if anyone wants to look at it at some point.
Yeah, I'm just interested in anybody that can, you know, put in chat or whatever, good people to work with, like Sylvan is suggesting. Our Shaelee in this valley, Tahuya River Valley, is one of the highest power users on the PUD. And that has to change, and it's a process because we inherited what we inherited, and weren't able to build from scratch. But any consultants or people that can help us begin to look at other ways to use the power we need to use in a better way. I mean, Mason County, most of the PUD is hydroelectric, but as we know, that's not sustainable. It might be clean, but it's not sustainable. So we'd like to get more off the grid, and are looking for just any ideas about who we can talk to that would be useful to us, not just a company that wants to sell us something.
Yeah,
So.
Sylvan, can you tell me your recommendation for me to put in the chat? And Tim, if you could give me your whatever your company or something like that, I can put that in there so it's easy for Kim to grab, or Kirsten to grab. Sorry.
So the company that we use is called Artisan Electric. And I've got 2 different phone numbers for them here, 206-557-4214 or 206-557-4215.
Aren't they off of Vashon Island?
It's what electric? What is the?
I'm sorry, I have this impediment. Shaelee, can you understand what I said?
Yeah, recommendations 206-557-4214 or 206-557-4215.
Did you catch the name of the company? I'm sorry.
Artisan Electric.
Thank you.
And Tim asked, are they on Vashon Island?
I don't know. I just know that they're local to here, and they've been in business for a long time, and they did all of our solar, and they maintain, whenever somebody new here wants solar, they're the people we go to.
Yeah.
I've heard of them. I think I've met them at different conferences.
They're pretty cool.
They seem like great guys.
They're very gung-ho. Like, they want to share information and get this out.
And Tim, you're Olympia Yelm area?
Well, I'm Olympia.
You're Olympia.
I just worked out in my first electric company. I ended up doing some work for out there for the Ramtha group, and then the news traveled, and so I got to meet all the different people within their group that was doing renewable energy work. And I started doing renewable stuff back in the late 70s, and have tried a couple of times to to roll it out. You know, we had it going pretty well where we did thermal and photovoltaic work in this region. The 2008 crash kind of took us out. So now I still do some work, I do some consulting, but mostly I've been focused on learning how to grow stuff. And so most of the work I do, including the work I did with Kevin on his shop and stuff, I do because I love it. I was involved with a school that was built back under the Carter administration. We built a school to teach self-sufficiency. I was only 20 at the time, but we had a road show and we took it to the UN Habitat Conference in Vancouver. And, you know, ever since then, it's been like, you know, when you have cheap fossil fuels, it's difficult. As much as we all want to make this transition, it's really difficult to, you know, you have to pare down and make everything really efficient. Everything we do has to contain more information. And, you know, that's what it was from the energy standpoint that I learned about biochar and built equipment and worked with other people and went to biochar conferences and helped build an Adams retort. And there's great potential there and small scale charging capabilities that's accessible to people. That's definitely a potential for small scale char production where we have a lot of wood in Washington. Once you start looking around, it's kind of everywhere. And the idea of cogen, which would mean that you capture the kinetic and the thermal energy, so the heat that you could make either with steam, you know, that's probably where that's going to go, is small scale steam. The green steam engine is a really interesting thing that's small scale, but you could capture the heat to heat space and then use the energy to charge batteries. I mean, that's as simple as I think it's going to get. It's difficult to, electricity is a real high grade fuel, and there's, you know, I love the small scale hydro if you have that capabilities, but that's requires quite a bit of head of drop, and most of it is just the efficiency of our space. And that's difficult because that's, you know, kind of core infrastructure expenditures to have walls that are R40 and ceilings that are R40. And, you know, so what we're seeing is people doing much smaller spaces, the tinies, and, you know, so they can go R40 in the walls and do hydronic heating. And the other thing that's being incorporated now is what they would call a HRV, a heat recovery ventilator. So we can keep fresh air, but we can also filter down to 3 microns for the smoke, because I think we're going to be in smoke for the next 10, 20 years. You know, it's the fire zones are moving up, and, you know, the last couple of years weren't too bad, but the year or so before that, it was quite smoky. And so when we're doing a new house or recommending equipment, you know, I'll say, well, skip the granite countertops and put in a $3,000 heat recovery ventilator, so that instead of changing the air in a home, which typically is done with a bathroom fan or a 120, 150 CFM fan that pulls air out of the structure and puts the house into a negative pressure and pulls air into the house through every nick and cranny and crack, is a terrible way to ventilate a space. Where a heat recovery ventilator pulls the air out of the house and scrubs the heat out of it as it brings fresh air in. So the fresh air coming in is preheated by the air being exhausted. And then you can choose filtration at different levels at different times of the year. So you don't have to have a really big filter in during the winter as much, unless you're trying to filter out, you know, mold spores. Some people are very sensitive, and so they like really, really clean air. But in the summer, when we have the fire stuff, it's like, you know, we have a little portable air cleaner that filters, you know, has three filters in it that does a pretty good job of keeping the air a little fresher. and the filters were pretty brown. But I think that's something that we all need to look at, is having some ability to filter that air. And it's also possible to put little exchangers in that airflow that you can put heat into a space. But I've never been rich, but I've always recommended people size down the house and put the money in the systems that, so you can operate. Your electric bills are $40, $50 a month. There's some really good hot water heating systems that come out of Japan that are really inexpensive, but they make a lot of really hot water. But they have upfront capital costs. But it's those systems that everybody's being forced to put in mini split heat pumps to heat their house, and they're fairly inexpensive to operate, but it's like one or two rooms get really warm and the rest of the space is not very warm. And so it comes down to design, and that's where the permaculture principle of it needs to meet the human needs and not just the building industry's needs. A little smaller, well insulated, use the sun, have the eaves the right height so it shades the summer but allows the winter to come in. Solar hot air collectors are pretty useful. A 4x8 solar hot air collector mounted on the outside of your wall with a really small fan that's less than an amp. At 10 minutes after the sun heats it, it has like a 50 to 60 degree temperature rise that goes through it. So if it's pulling 50 degrees out of the house or the shop, it's blowing in 90 degree temperatures back in. And half an hour later, it's a more comfortable space and nothing can freeze.
Are those solar? Are the solar hot air collectors easy to integrate into an existing, already existing building?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can send some pictures. They're really, if you picture a piece of plywood, it's got a layer of insulation, some layer of metal screen inside, sometimes the expanded metal that you would put behind tile or things. It's 3 or 4 layers of that, and then some sort of glass or plastic cover, and a hole in the bottom corner and a hole in the top corner on the opposite side. Fairly simple thing to build yourself. They do make some commercial units, but it's you can Google it and there's just a ton of people that have made all kinds of solar hot air. And it works really quickly. As soon as the sun hits it, it's kind of like a greenhouse.
Great.
But it's, painted black inside, and it's amazing how much air. It's probably the cheapest approach to capturing, even just a little bit of sun, but an hour of sunshine, you can raise the temperature in the space 4 or 5 degrees, as much as 10 degrees if it's not really large.
Tim, I'm hearing in the chat a request for you as a consultant, and I heard you saying that you're kind of stepping away from doing most of that work to focus on, your own or different projects. Do you have anyone else that you kind of trust with these sorts of things that's more on the Olympic Peninsula part of the Hood Canal region that you would recommend?
I can look into that a little bit. There's a guy in Squim that just built a 1,000 square foot space, and he went through a big learning curve, and he's a semi-retired electrician that was really had it going on. He's
cool.
up there already.
I'm in Squim, so that would be a good person for me to know. And
yeah, they did a really, he might do a tour.
Cool.
They did a 1,000 square foot space that he was one of those people that chose a small space, but put in all the systems so they could be comfortable and be very affordable monthly.
Yeah, and the request was for anybody that is south of an Olympia too. And also Sylvan has a question or comment. And if we have other things, we have about 15 minutes left just for project sharing. And I love this conversation. And Tim, you have a wealth of knowledge, so please keep talking. But I want to give Sylvan a chance to speak.
My question is actually, when this conversation is ready to wind down or shift direction, I would love to talk about mushroom gardens and trading mushroom spore with people. I've got, and when this conversation is ready to switch.
Yeah, and I have an encouragement for all of us to use the chat as a place to take notes too. If there's something in the presentation you really like, we're copying the chat and putting it in our Slack channel so that it's really easy for anybody. I mean, if you get onto Slack, it's really easy to draw any of the information and resources that are happening in this digital time. I mean, after this, we're gonna have to like watch the video to try to get to that point where there was something that's exciting. But if you write it in the chat, it's immediately available for us to look and find. So please feel free to use the chat as like your personal place to take notes. And it's notes that we're sharing with each other. Yeah.
Those been posted yet, Shaelee, in the Slack?
Everything gets posted in there. Like right after each session, we're copying it and putting it in a channel that's called Zoom. I think it's Zoom Convergence 2020 notes or something like that.
And I've been trying to keep them in Discord also. I haven't finished uploading all of yesterday's into Discord, but that way, because some people were saying they could get on Slack but not Discord. So
yeah, and Tim, if you had any like pictures or resources or any of that stuff for us, we can put it into our Discord and Slack channels. Maybe we can make one for just sustainable energy or just energy solutions. That would be a good channel that if you send us stuff, we'll create those channels in Slack and Discord and put it in there. And if there's any like, I don't know, handouts or like useful resources, we can put that stuff on the protocol as a link, or you can have a suggestion. You can use a suggestion feature to suggest we put links into the protocol. And if there's a really useful resource like that, we're putting the handouts that presenters have in there, and we can have that be like another community resource because that's a doc we all have access to.
Yeah, I'll try to work on that. I had to wake up my millennial to get on this morning. You know, I'm doing this on my phone, and so it's you know, I will say my email is timsonofted@gmail.com. And my dad was one of the original renewable energy, knowing that we needed to get self-sufficient back in their mid-70s. And he did some amazing stuff, and could build anything you could dream up, and he could draw it as you talked about it. So it was great with folks. And, you know, I've been to the last couple of convergences, and
Ted@gmail.com. Oh, sorry. Russ wants to contact me.
Tim, are you totally retired, or can I lure you into a consultation down here and outside of Tenino? I'm real close. I'll buy you lunch.
Well, that sounds good. You know, I'm probably a month or so away from being able to do that. I'm finishing an ADU for some friends that is for somebody that needs a elder care place, and so I'm not doing. I promised myself I wouldn't get overly busy. I try to focus on one thing at a time, and then I can do a great job. But
yeah, I am the elder that needs the care, so I'm trying to get. I just moved down from Tacoma, sold 2 houses up there, bought 2 houses down here, and yesterday not signed the papers, accepted the offer on the house in town. So now I'm going to have the budget that I can actually turn this new place, which is gardens all over, but the woman was not a permie at all. She was, I'll get it from Home Depot. I'll put in all, it's like everything still has a tag on it. It drives me nuts. But
I would love to have tea and talk. I mean,
come out here and walk the land. It's precious, but it's like, and you can easily social distance. There's 10 acres altogether, 2 of it up above and 8 that's in woods next to conservancy land. So it's like.
Yeah, and let's take a few moments to talk mushroom.
I'll get your email. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. That was Tim, son of Ted.
You've got it typed as Time, son of Ted. I think that's not right.
I didn't write that. That was Julie. It's Tim.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Julie.
Yep. Thank you.
I have an Olympia resource. I haven't talked to him in a couple of years, so I don't know how he's doing through the pandemic, but his page is still up. His name is Tibor, Tibor, and his webpage is ionecobuilding.org.
Okay, can you type that into the chat also? I can't, if you say something, it's in one ear and out the other. I have a visual memory.
Yeah, are you typing that, Sylvan? Do you want to repeat it?
I will type that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I know Tibor.
Yeah, I think I've met him at previous convergences. I don't know if I've ever met you, Tim.
I don't know either.
This is Patricia Menzies. I missed last year's convergence, but I was at the one before that.
Could I say a few things about renewable energy before we move on to mushrooms?
Yeah, please keep it to like just a few sentences because we only have 8 minutes left. And I'd like to honor that request to talk about mushrooms too.
Right. I just want to say that I don't know if any of you know about the agrivoltaics, but some of you were on the call last night when I mentioned that. But the OSU Corvallis in Oregon has found out that 1% of the world's farmland could supply the world's electricity using photovoltaics as shelters over animals like sheep and stuff like that. So you can easily Google the word. And I want to say that Mother Earth News and Home Power Magazine, Home Power Magazine went out of business about 2 or 3 years ago, but their archives are all online the last 30 years. And so you have lots of off-grid work there. And recently on Facebook, I saw a little water wheel that can run some power just by having a wheel spun in a stream. But you have to be very careful with small scale hydro for all the permits, especially when you have a salmon spawning creek. And my principle is 1 hat, 2 pairs of socks, and 3 jerseys and sweaters is the way to stay warm. And I'll give you a tip from Real Goods. They says 1 person, 1 room, 1 light. So we really,
right. Absolutely.
Some of my friends are doing that now. And so I put on 25 renewable energy events in Oregon. I initiated Oregon's revised solar tax credit in the legislature. I've been working on this stuff since 1975. So I'd like to know who your father was, Tim. I'm going to talk to you later. That's all I had to say right now.
Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate the resources you're sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah, another warmth trick. If you have when your wool socks wear out, cut off the feet, and you have these awesome wrist warmers and ankle warmers that make it so much more comfortable to work outside or be in a cold environment. So all of that awesome sock that you might think is worthless when the feet run out, save it. And it's a really nice way to up your body temperature and comfort zone.
Love it.
Yeah, Shaelee, these are the little socks that you get when you go to the hospitals and shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
That have little skids.
Yeah.
Undo the ends of it, and they're wrist warmers, and also they give the little bit of padding for your wrist on your desk.
Nice. Yep. Similar principle.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Sylvan, your question was sources for getting mushroom spawn.
Yeah, so I bought some. Mushroom spawn is very expensive, and it's available in quantities that are bigger than I need. Even the smallest amount that I could buy was like a very large amount. But also I know that people have locally adapted varieties to the Pacific Northwest. The stuff I bought was from the Midwest. But well, they actually helped me pick out a variety of shiitake that they said is really good in the Pacific Northwest. But I also
Tilton, Seattle. Brian.
I got some from the dude in Swim whose name I can't remember.
Oh yeah, Lowell. I just put his contact information.
Lowell is awesome. And recently I harvested some Hericium spore from a decaying tree in the forest that's already adapted to Douglas fir, which is, it doesn't normally grow on Douglas fir, the spore that you can buy. But I just thought it would be fun, just like a seed swap, to trade spore with people rather than just buying it and relying on purchasing it. If there are other people who have mushrooms that they're growing that they like, that are adapted to this climate, get in touch with me. I'll put my email in the chat. I just think it would be really awesome to start a mushroom spore swap, much like a seed swap. And if anybody has any tips, I'm just starting my mushroom garden and excited but not really knowledgeable. I went to Lowell's talk last year at the Convergence and I was like, gung-ho, I'm gonna do this, and I don't really know what I'm doing. So if anybody has any super awesome tips, we would love that. There are a few
Peter
of us.
McCoy's book.
What's that?
Peter McCoy's book, Radical Mycology, has a whole section on propagating regional mushrooms and how to prepare the substrate.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was an awesome talk he gave last year, and
Yeah, I was going to say that too. Peter McCoy is
Yes.
a good resource also.
Excellent.
his book is crazy. It's so thick and so huge, but you know, the sections of it that are specific are you know, I found to be some of your local people that are doing stuff is probably the best resource. But you know, he's got sections that cover so many different areas that it's an incredible resource. And my wife used to be the secretary for the local mushroom group, and yeah, his work was considered to be effective. You know, sometimes it's not, you know, it's I've done a bit of controlled environment structures for people, you know, commercial growing mushrooms, and you know, it's a thing. It's a wonderful world to be involved with. But starting spores, you know, it's nice if you can find the wild inoculum that you can add to a space. It's, you know, it's a lot of trial and error and finding the right microclimate for it to be. But there's nothing like fresh mushrooms.
Yeah, and Sylvan, Tim, you just reminded me about the local mycological societies. That's a really nice, there probably is a mycological society. I would imagine there'd be a thriving one in Seattle, and just emailing them.
Puget Sound Mycological Society. I'm actually a member, but I don't know that they do cultivation. Maybe there are some people there who do. They're more focused on.
They might have a listserv for people in your area that you could put that request out there.
I put Brian Faubert's Facebook page. I'd met him. He does that, and he's in Seattle. I think he lives at Tilth or works with them. I mean, he's an awesome guy.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah, and it's officially 9 o'clock, and I think we're starting now or in 15 minutes. Right now, we're going to be transitioning into David Stein being the more hosty hat. So I'm digitally passing it